Hitman Chev Chelios rolls out of bed feeling deathly ill. He stumbles into the living room to see a CD labeled FU sitting in front of his TV. He inserts it, presses play, and is shocked to see what's on it. On the video, he sees himself sleeping, and standing over him are the Verona brothers, well-known local gangsters. The younger, Ricky, knows that by now Chev is feeling like shit. He then injects Chev with a substance he claims to be some Chinese concoction, which once bonded with his bloodstream, would give Chev only an hour before he dies. A more Shakespearean way of killing the great hitman instead of just shooting him. If he had any doubts, this was retaliation for killing Don Kim. Chev rages out and smashes the TV. The spike in adrenaline giving him just a few extra minutes, so wasting no time, Chev races from the apartment, jumps into his car, and takes off at breakneck speed. He tries calling his girl Eve, but she isn't at home, so he calls his doctor Miles. He isn't in either, so Chev leaves a message. If he doesn't call him back within an hour, Chev will die. Chev's vision begins to get blurry, so he floors the gas pedal, adding a few more minutes like a checkpoint race. He calls a friend, Kalo, telling him to get on the streets and put the word out that he's looking for Ricky, as he plans to kill him even if it's the last thing he does.
Find him!
Chev then barges into a club and grabs a thug there, Orlando, locking them both inside the bathroom. Chev demands to know Ricky's whereabouts, as he and Orlando recently pulled a job together. Orlando's goons all burst and pointing their guns at Chev, but Orlando has them back down as he and Chev go way back. Orlando explains that he and Ricky are no longer acquainted after Ricky double-crossed him on a recent job and now owes him money. Chev accepts this, but starts to feel weak once more, so he asks Orlando to give him some illegal substance.
You saying this is medicinal use coke? Is that what you're saying?
After some back and forth, Chev gets his stuff and digs into it like a raccoon in the trash. The drugs wear off really fast, but now realizing he needs to keep his adrenaline up, he picks a fight with Orlando's goons and ends up getting thrown out of the club. He is back on the road when Ricky calls. Surprised, Chev is still alive, but Chev refuses to die until he gets his revenge. Chev wonders what his boss Don Carlito will think, but Ricky reveals that Carlito is in on the plan to get rid of him. By this time, cops get on Chev's tail. Miles then calls, so Chev explains the situation and his symptoms. Miles figures he got the Beijing Cocktail, warning that it inhibits the adrenaline, meaning if he stops moving, he dies. Chev ends up driving through a mall, people diving out of his way. He crashes and takes off on foot, reminding himself that if he stops moving, he dies. He escapes the cops and grabs a cab out back, telling the driver to just drive. He starts to feel the effects of the poison, so he has the driver put on some rock music, jamming all the way until he gets to a convenience store. He fills a large bag with caffeine pills and energy drinks, tries again calling Eve but fails, so he finishes up, grabs a bouquet, before heading back to the cab and going for Beverly Hills. At Carlito's mansion, he is swimming when Chev dives in wanting to talk. He wants Carlito to help him find an antidote, but Carlito knows about the poison, revealing there is nothing he can do to help Chev. With a chuckle, he explains that the Don Kim hit was maybe ill-advised, as the heat from Hong Kong has been great, so Chev was used as the scapegoat for the hit. Chev loses it, but Carlito won't stand for his disrespect, so Chev storms out. He gets back to the cab, and the man refuses to allow him inside, so Chev yells that he is Al-Qaeda and leaves him to be mobbed by elderly people. Miles calls back, explaining that he needs epinephrine, artificial adrenaline, which he can get from any emergency room. Kalo then calls as he saw Ricky's brother heading into the Prince, a fine dining restaurant, so Chev tells him to meet him close by. Chev gets there, learns he is alone inside, and tells Kalo to wait. Chev walks in and right by Ricky's brother, who spots him. The man pulls his gun and starts searching for Chev, but Chev ambushes him outside and chops off his arm. Chev demands to know where Ricky is, but the big man tackles him. Kalo jumps in with a rolling pin. Chev is out of bullets, so while the man is focused on Kalo, he picks up the man's hand still holding the gun and kills him with it. He then calls Ricky using his brother's cell phone.
Hey, talk to me, bro. Is this fucking Chelios?
That's right, bro.
Thinking he should have killed him when he had the chance, and he is next. Chev then stops by the nearest hospital, asking for epinephrine at the pharmacy counter, but the pharmacist refuses to give it to him. A man nearby then tells him about the nasal sprays that contain epinephrine, so he grabs a few and starts huffing them. He runs into some cops, so he dips inside a patient's room. The cops come to check but miss Chev, who hides inside a closet. He then puts on a patient's gown, but the cops spot him and give chase. Chev runs into some doctors moving a patient, so he holds one at gunpoint demanding epinephrine. The cops close in on him with guns drawn, but Chev lets off shots keeping them back. The doctor eventually finds the epinephrine, but the poison starts to act fast, so he demands the doctor hit him with the defibrillator. One hit sends him flying into the elevator.
Clear?
He holds off the cops until the doors close and injects himself with way more epinephrine than Miles advised him. Soon, his heart begins to gallop. Chev bursts from the hospital, leaving the car behind and sprinting at top speed, seeing sounds and hearing colors. Miles calls, and from what he hears, he knows Chev took way more than he should have, advising that it should be out of his system in 30 minutes if it doesn't kill him first. He stops to see a news report about him. One civilian notices him, but decides to ignore him and avoid any issues. Chev then spots a bike cop at a stoplight, and wanting another rush, he steals the cop's gun, taunting him with it before jumping onto the bike and taking off after doing some donuts with the cop hanging on. The adrenaline soon starts to wear off, so Chev stands on top of the speeding bike, arms outstretched, eventually crashing into a roadside restaurant. Eve finally calls back. Turns out she had been sleeping in. Chev calmly tells her there's probably a psycho on his way to torture her, but he's on his way over now. He soon gets to Eve's apartment, checking around but sees no one. She is oblivious to the danger she is in, asking him to take a look at her microwave. Chev asks her to go put some clothes on as he's taking her out, but his adrenaline soon starts to fall, so he burns his hand in the waffle maker to get a buzz. Eve gets dressed, but Chev spots some of Ricky's men approaching the apartment. Eve heads back inside to turn off the waffle maker when the phone rings, so Chev rushes and knocks out the man calling at the gate before rushing back to Eve. He spots another man approaching, knocks over Eve's bag to distract her before attacking the man. The two struggle over the gun, but Chev eventually kills him and dumps his body in a nearby pool. The two travel to Chinatown and head to a restaurant. There, Chev confesses that he isn't actually a video game programmer, but instead kills people for a living. His last hit on Don Kim was due to the triads moving in on the local drug syndicates, but it turns out Chev did not kill Don Kim, instead telling him to disappear for 48 hours. His plan was to disappear with Eve for good, but now his trip will be a solo one. Eve doesn't believe a word, believing he is just trying to break up with her. Just then his adrenaline drops, so without any hesitation, Chev decides they need to make love on the spot to save his life. Eve eventually gives in, and with the crowd looking on and cheering, the two get into it until Kalo calls, giving him Ricky's location at Don Kim's factory. But Chev is unaware Kalo is being forced to lead him into a trap. Chev takes a cab. The driver notices him looking ill, and refusing to let him die in his cab, offers Chev a Haitian cocktail, claiming it will strengthen him up. Chev has nothing left to lose and downs the entire bottle, then begins to trip balls, seeing everything in slow motion. Meanwhile, Ricky and his men brutally kill Kalo. Chev wakes up in front of Don Kim's factory. He decides to head to the roof instead of going through the front, ambushing one man there and throwing him off the roof.
Hey, what's your name? What's your name?
Chev enters the factory and confronts the men there, demanding Ricky's location, but learns this was Don Carlito's orders. Chev has been causing too much trouble, bringing too much attention to the organization, and they think he should accept his fate now and die. Realizing his own people are trying to get rid of him, Chev plans to get revenge. Just then, Eve enters the building through the elevators, so Chev kills the first man before using Kalo's body as a shield. He ends up taking a bullet to the butt, escaping back into the elevator. They get downstairs where a clothing factory is located. One gangster gets there, but Chev ambushes the man, shoving his hand into a sewing machine. Other men open fire, so Chev and Eve escape using the fire escape, taking out two other men there. They don't get a second to rest as more men open fire, so Chev throws Eve into a nearby car and takes off with the men chasing after them. She finally believes him, and upon learning that adrenaline is keeping him alive, she decides to give him some oral assistance. Chev takes out one car, opens fire on the other, causing it to crash. then walks over to the men, finishing them off and leaving Eve shocked. Chev then stops by a hardware store, telling Eve to wait as he heads inside. She, however, rushes in after him, only to find him driving nails into his foot, unable to feel his leg. Miles calls him, telling him to stop by his office. There, Miles gives him artificial adrenaline, plus other additives to temporarily neutralize the poison in his body. But after this treatment, he is practically a dead man. The best he can do is put Chev on life support to give him a few extra days, but eventually, he will slip into a coma. Chev thinks about it, but that's not what he wants. He wants just 1 hour. Ricky is in his car watching news reports of Chev's rampage downtown, and one of his guys thinks maybe they gave him too much. Chev then calls. He wants the antidote in exchange for his family heirloom pendant he took off his brother. Ricky agrees, so Chev gives him the location where he will be.
Well, how about the jewelry I got off that faggot brother of yours? You know the spot?
Yeah, I know it.
Chev turns up to the Linton Hotel, already knowing he has eyes on him. In the restroom, he checks the adrenaline pump Miles gave to him. He enters an elevator where he pops a whole lot of pills and ends up hallucinating, seeing the man standing next to him talking to him in multiple voices.
This is weird.
Yeah, I know this is weird.
It was that maybe, but there's a new gun in town.
Adrenaline junkie, addicted to violence. Hell, you'd probably get off on it. Until the hell are you anyway?
He gets to the top floor where 2 of Ricky's men are waiting for him. They bring him out onto a massive deck where Ricky and Carlito are seated together. His men pat him down and find his adrenaline pump and remove it. Carlito thinks he has caused enough damage and won't let him mess up his otherwise perfect plan to use him as a scapegoat. Carlito then pulls out another syringe, ordering his men to hold Chev down, but Chev aims his finger at one man, mimicking a gunshot, and suddenly the man drops down. It's Don Kim who is turned up, and his men open fire on Carlito's group, kicking off a gun battle. On the street, cops and news reporters are flooding the area, their focus Chev. Meanwhile, Chev causes Ricky to blow off his own fingers with a gun. Carlito's men are being wiped out.
Get me out of here now!
A grenade is thrown, and he uses his own man as a shield before taking off. Ricky also takes off running, but Chev's adrenaline drops, and he is unable to shoot straight. He catches up with Carlito, who is boarding a chopper, but Ricky creeps up behind him and injects him with more of the poison. Chev collapses, and Ricky shoots Carlito dead before boarding the chopper, forcing the pilot to take off. Chev gathers himself and grabs onto Ricky in the chopper as it lifts off.
Oh my god.
The two fight, the adrenaline pushing Chev on, and he eventually overpowers Ricky and pulls him from the chopper. The two begin falling toward the ground, but Chev ensures he breaks Ricky's neck before he falls. Chev tries calling Eve but gets voicemail, apologizing for letting her down, wishing he had taken more time with her. Chev then falls to the ground, apparently dead. Chev is scooped up off the street by gangsters. 3 months later, he wakes in a Chinese underground hospital in the middle of his own heart removal operation. Also in the room is triad gangster Johnny Vang, who keeps messing with Chev, knocking ash into his open chest until the doctors chase him out. They then remove Chev's heart, put it inside a container, then replace it with an artificial heart. A few hours later, Chev wakes with a battery pack attached to his fake heart.
Don't like horse.
The doctors are planning to harvest more body parts, but Chev attacks the doctors. He steals some clothes and makes it to the roof of the building and realizes the battery keeping his heart pumping is dying. He tries calling Eve, but her number is no longer in service. Suddenly, a man holds him at gunpoint, but Chev quickly disarms him. He runs into some thugs, but easily outmatches them and kills them. He ambushes the last thug trying to reload, demanding to know who he works for. The man refuses to talk, so Chev lubes the gun and shoves it up the man's butt, and learns that Johnny has his heart and hangs out at the Cypress Social Club. He steals a nearby car, but his heart is almost out of battery, weakening him. Thinking fast, he attaches the battery to the car, blasting through the shooting men. He calls Miles, who is shocked to hear that he is still alive. He tells Miles about the heart and is advised not to do anything strenuous. If his battery pack dies, then the heart's internal battery will kick in, giving him just 1 extra hour. The internal battery charges wirelessly, so he needs to stay electrically charged if he wants to stay alive. Some Mexicans pull up beside him wanting to race. Chev asks for directions to the club, but ends up crashing and flying through the windshield, destroying the battery pack. The Mexicans pull up to check on him, telling him the club isn't far away. Chev asks for a jump, but not for his car. He attaches one jumper cable to his chest and the other to his tongue before they hit him with the current, giving Chev the energy to take off sprinting. He stops by some guys, asking for the social club, and they point him to a rundown drug house. Chev barges inside, sending people scrambling for cover as he searches for Johnny. Johnny himself jumps from a window carrying the case, jumps into a car, and takes off. Chev gets outside, sending 2 more thugs running, saving a young businesswoman, Rhea, who claims to know where Johnny is hiding out. Chev tries hijacking a car, but gets thrown off. They get to a club, where inside, some Mexican gangsters led by Chico are beating Johnny, demanding Chev's location.
Chelios, metralla the whore.
Chico has his men hold down Johnny's friend and slices off his elbow, so Johnny wants to make a deal. Inside the club, Chev is shocked to see Eve there working as a stripper under the name Lemon. Chev barges onto the stage, and she is shocked to see him still alive. Eve's pimp confronts him, but Chev throws him off the stage. He tries to leave with Eve, but Chico and his men spot him. Chico wants to make a deal, but Chev opens fire, kicking off a gunfight. Chico ends up taking a bullet to the stomach and escapes out the back. Chev guns down the remaining men. He learns from one man barely alive that the mob boss El Huron, the ferret, wants to capture him and watch him die. Chev grabs Eve and they get outside where cops surround them. Chev fights off the cops, but he starts to feel weak, allowing the cops to jump him. One tases him, but this charges his heart, allowing him to overpower the cops and steal a car. They end up picking up another businesswoman who tries coming onto Eve as she and Chev argue about where he has been for the last 3 months. The businesswoman knows Johnny and suspects he's at the horse track he usually visits. Chev then calls Miles, who reveals he could put his heart back in if he gets his hands on it. Chev then crashes into a crowd of protesters blocking his path. Some other cops pull up, so Chev takes off running. He runs into a park and spots 2 guys tormenting a dog with a shock collar. Chev removes the collar and attaches it to his own neck, urging the guy to shock him over and over. A cop arrives, but the pissed-off dog attacks him. His colleague decides not to get involved and chases after Chev. The cops corner Chev on the street, but just then, a man looking just like Kalo picks him up on a bike. He is Venus, Kalo's twin brother. He suffers from full-body Tourette's and ends up throwing them from the bike. Venus wants to get revenge for Kalo, but Chev tells him he already killed the men, all except El Huron. He wants to get to the racetrack, but learns he is already there. Chev stumbles into the stadium feeling weak. He calls Miles, who informs him that skin-to-skin friction would create a bit of current to keep him going. Chev then goes to stand beside a guy, rubbing his hand on his aggressively. Eve gets to the stadium and sees him grinding up against an old woman. Chev spots Johnny, but he is getting weaker by the second. He tells Eve he needs friction to stay alive, so she begins to grind on him until she sees the massive scar on his chest. The two end up falling onto the track, but she continues to grind on him to the cheers of the crowd, which eventually leads to them doing it right there. Even Johnny starts enjoying the show. Security sprays Eve with a hose to chase her off, and Chev chases after Johnny, who takes off running. Venus tries to stop him, but his Tourette's causes Johnny to escape in his car. Chev continues to chase, jumping from floor to floor of the parking garage. He catches up with the car and manages to jump onto it, fighting Johnny for the box until they throw him off. Don Kim arrives and picks them up. Venus has another episode, so they throw him out of the car. Don Kim then reveals that the leader of their organization, Poon Dong, rumored to be almost 100, grew gravely ill and needed a heart transplant. When news spread that Chev was able to withstand their deadliest poison, Poon Dong chose to steal his heart. Chev takes the news fairly well. He thanks Don Kim and goes to leave, but Don Kim plans to turn him over to Poon Dong for a reward, so Chev grabs a man's gun and sprays the entire car, killing everyone inside and causing the car to crash. Chev recovers. He spots a high-voltage box and grabs onto it, which sends him flying. Chico goes to report to the ferret, who is mad that he allowed Chev to get away. For his punishment, Chico is forced to cut off his own nipples, and the ferret warns him not to mess up another time. Eve is walking along the roadway cussing Chev for leaving her behind when she runs into her pimp Randy. He saw reports of Chev and knows the triads are looking for him, warning Eve not to be around him. Eve doesn't care, and Randy threatens to slap her, but Eve beats his ass right there. She then unknowingly walks past Venus and right into some cops who arrest her. Venus calls Orlando, who seems to be into some different type of freaky stuff, asking for help in finding the ferret. Chev spots an ambulance speeding through traffic and jumps onto it. Inside, the paramedics are trying to save one of Don Kim's men. He holds the men at gunpoint, demanding a battery pack for his artificial heart. The paramedic finds one, attaches it to Chev, and turns it on. Chev then spots Johnny walking along the street and jumps from the ambulance. He calls Miles, telling him to get ready as he's about to get his heart back. He approaches Johnny, but Rhea spots him blowing his cover until she is hit by a car. Chev opens fire on Johnny. His driver takes off, leaving him and his buddy, and Chev gives chase, gunning Johnny's friend down. His gun is empty, so he chases Johnny, who jumps the fence into a power station. Johnny ambushes Chev, shoving him into an electrical box, but Chev brushes it off and ends up beating Johnny's face in. He demands the key and the combo to the box containing his heart, beating Johnny's face in. Johnny complies, but Chev's heart is not in the box. He calls Miles, who reveals that his heart was transplanted into Pundong 3 weeks ago. Chev demands Pundong's location from Johnny, but he is killed by Chico, and Chev is knocked out and thrown in the back of their car. After torturing Chev, strapping him to the back of a speeding boat, and electrocuting his balls, Chev is dragged before the ferret, who turns out to be the third Verona brother. He plans to take his time killing Chev, and there's one more person who wants to watch. He then shows Chev Ricky's head being artificially kept alive in a glass tank. Ferret has his men lay Chev down, then begins to whip him. Just then, Orlando, Venus, and even Rhea show up, all armed and with backup. A huge gun battle erupts with Ferret taking a bullet to the shoulder. Chev grabs him, and when Chico tries to intervene, Chev kills him. Venus is gunning for the ferret. He runs out of bullets, then pulls out some martial arts moves, taking out 2 men. Meanwhile, Miles has his businesswoman Brown Sugar hit the streets. Pundong is enjoying his newfound energy and looking for a businesswoman when he encounters Brown Sugar. She lures him back to her place, but there he runs into Miles prepared to remove his heart. Ricky's glass tank gets shattered in the gunfire. The head still manages to tell Chev F.U., so Chev kicks his head into a pool. Chev collapses. Ferret goes to finish him off, but Venus tackles him. Chev slowly rises. He spots a light pole nearby, and out of options, he climbs it. He grabs the wires barehanded and gets thrown off. Ferret is beating the crap out of Venus. He goes to finish him off when Chev, now on fire, beats his face in barehanded before tossing him into the pool along with Ricky. The intense energy makes Chev hallucinate seeing Rhea as Eve. He pulls her into a hug, setting her on fire. He then walks to the camera and flashes a middle finger while still on fire,